triumph of spirit, the journey of Zuri Marlowe.
Zuri Marlowe's life began in one of the lesser-known corners of the United States, a small, windswept township on St. Emily's Isle, just off the coast of Maine. Unlike most places, St. Emily's had a single high school, known simply as St. Emily's Academy, with a mere 80 students across all grades. The school itself was a modest brick building with just a few rooms and a rusty basketball hoop hanging lopsided in the backyard. But for Zuri, a quiet yet determined junior, her school was her world, a sanctuary filled with books and people who believed in her. And it was in this unassuming place that her journey toward national recognition began. Zuri wasn't a loud or boastful student. In fact, most people at St. Emily's knew her more for her quiet nature and the way she always had her nose in a book. But anyone who knew her a little better would tell you that Zuri Marlowe was nothing short of brilliant. Her mind seemed to dance through ideas and thoughts as quickly as a hummingbird flits between flowers, and her teachers were constantly in awe of her writing ability. It was during an English class one day that Mrs. Grant, the school's beloved English teacher, recognized that Zuri might have something rare, a gift that deserved to be shared with a broader audience. Zuri, Mrs. Grant had called her over one afternoon, holding up a wrinkled flyer she'd just taken from a stack of mail. It was a call for entries to a national essay competition focused on diversity, resilience, and the stories that shape American identity. The winning essay would be read aloud at a national event in Washington, D.C., and the winner would receive a scholarship toward their college tuition. "You should enter this, Mrs. Grant said, smiling down at her. Zuri's eyes widened. "Me? I've never even been to a competition before." Quote. Mrs. Grant chuckled. "Exactly. It's time you start. I think the world deserves to hear your voice." Quote. That night, Zuri took the flyer home, reading it over several times. The topic alone inspired her, and her mind raced with ideas. The stories of her community on St. Emily's Isle were untold stories, once often lost in the shadow of larger, louder places. With her heart full of resolve, Zuri decided she would write, not just for herself but for the people of her island who had shaped her. She knew she had little chance, but she wanted to try anyway. The journey begins. When Zuri submitted her essay, she tried not to think much about it. She knew that students from top schools with prestigious backgrounds would be competing, and she had no illusions about her small school's reputation in the big world. But a month later, she received an email that took her breath away. She had been selected as one of the finalists to represent her region in the national competition. She couldn't believe it. St. Emily's, a school most people had never even heard of, was being put on the map, all because of her essay. News spread quickly around her small school. Her friends hugged her, and even her shy little brother couldn't hide his pride. The entire school rallied around Zuri, cheering her on and reminding her just how proud they were. The principal, Mr. Diaz, even called an assembly to announce her achievement, and as she looked out at her schoolmates' beaming faces, she realized that this was much bigger than herself. She was representing her community, a small township that most people knew little about. Zuri's family didn't have much money, but her community stepped in to support her. Mrs. Janice, who ran the town bakery, organized a bake sale, and the local fishing community donated part of their weekly earnings to cover her travel expenses. With everyone's support, Zuri was ready to step onto the national stage. Stepping onto the national stage. When Zuri arrived in Washington, D.C., she felt like she was in a dream. The tall, gleaming buildings and the bustling city streets were unlike anything she had ever seen. Even the hotel lobby, with its shiny floors and chandelier, felt unreal. Everything was grander and louder than the world she came from, and for a moment, she wondered if she belonged there at all. But she remembered the reason she had come, the stories of her home, her community, her people. And that filled her with courage. During the first few days, the contestants were put through workshops and activities to prepare them for the competition. Zuri met students from different corners of the country, each with their unique backgrounds and perspectives. Many came from prestigious private schools and had polished, confident attitudes that intimidated Zuri at first. She felt the difference, and there were moments she felt out of place, but there was also a quiet pride inside her, a reminder that she had something unique to offer. During one of the workshops, Zuri's shy voice caught the attention of one of the mentors. It was a simple discussion about overcoming challenges, and Zuri had shared a story about the resilience of the people on her island, who often endured harsh winters, economic struggles, and isolation. The mentor listened intently, nodding with a warm smile, and afterward pulled Zuri aside. "You have a powerful voice, Zuri," she said. "Don't hold back. The world needs to hear what you have to say." Quote. The day of the competition. On the day of the competition, Zuri felt her nerves reaching a fever pitch. She was dressed in her best, a simple blue dress her mother had carefully packed for her, and she felt as though her heart was going to beat out of her chest. She was the last contestant to present, which gave her plenty of time to watch the others. Each one delivered their essay with confidence, speaking with practiced eloquence. But as she sat there, her fear melted into admiration. She realized that each student had something beautiful to offer, a story that mattered. And it made her feel braver, like she was part of something much bigger. When her name was called, Zuri took a deep breath and stepped up to the podium. The lights were bright, almost blinding, and as she looked out into the audience, her stomach twisted with nerves. But then she thought of St. Emily's Isle, of Mrs. Grant, her family, her friends, and everyone who had supported her. With renewed resolve, she began to read. Her essay was a story about resilience, about growing up on an island where winters were long, and resources were few, but where people's hearts were always open. She spoke about her community's unwavering hope, their ability to find joy in simplicity, and the unique way they supported one another. As she spoke, her voice grew stronger, carrying with it the spirit of her home. By the end of her reading, there was a profound silence in the auditorium, and she could see people wiping their eyes. In that moment, she realized that her story had resonated with them. The moment of triumph. Later that day, as the judges announced the winners, Zuri held her breath. She couldn't believe it when she heard her name called as the national winner. The entire room erupted in applause, and for a moment, Zuri was too stunned to move. Tears streamed down her face as she made her way to the stage. She looked out at the crowd and felt a swell of pride, not for herself but for her community, for everyone who had believed in her. When she returned to St. Emily's Isle, the entire town came out to welcome her. There was a celebration in the school gym, and banners with her name were draped across the walls. The town mayor gave a heartfelt speech, and Zuri was presented with a framed certificate from the community. Mrs. Grant, her mentor, hugged her tightly, whispering, "I knew you could do it." Quote. For Zuri, winning the national essay competition wasn't just a personal triumph. It was proof that even the quietest voices from the smallest places deserved to be heard. Her story wasn't just about her journey, it was about the power of community, resilience, and the belief that no matter where you come from, your voice has the power to make a difference.